Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everyone. You already know what time it is. Time for Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall, Valenzuela, Ronis with you for the next couple of hours, getting you ready for all of those drafts that you have coming up because the season is quickly approaching, Adam. And we got a lot of news that we get to talk about, too. Not the Mets. We won't talk about the Mets. We can talk about the Yankees if you want because they're also losing. So you're kind of happy about that. But how you doing? How's it going?
Yeah, let's talk football because baseball's not going well for me right now. So,
That's
yes, we will
fine.
stick with the NFL where lots going on, drafts every day. And before you know it, the season will be here. Preseason for
I know, this
every team
weekend.
begins this week. We got 3 games tomorrow, three
I'm
more on
excited.
Friday, Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So, yeah, here we
Wow,
go.
that's a lot. I actually did. I like that you knew the full schedule. Do you have it up in front of you, or did you actually just know that?
No, I had it up in front
Oh,
of me.
okay. I was like,
I'm
wow,
not, me-
that was
I'm not
really
memorizing the
impressive.
preseason schedule.
I was like, that's when you know Adam's locked in, when he's just firing off the preseason schedule without even looking. No, but it is awesome, and like we've said over the past couple of months, this is just come so quickly, the NFL season. So we're just weeks away. We know a lot of you have your drafts scheduled or you're getting ready for them. So as always, at K Valenzuela 17, at Adam Ronis over there on X. If you have any questions and just or at work or whatever you're doing, can't get through on the phone lines, can't call us in today, make sure you send us a message over there. Keeper questions, strategy questions. I've got some saved, Adam, for this morning that we'll make sure to get to. But if not, 888-963-2682 is the phone number to call in, or you can press that new call in button on the Sirius XM app. And we are absolutely here to help you dominate those drafts. So we've got a lot of news, actually, Adam, that we need to get to. Let's start with the big one that actually happened right towards the end of our show yesterday, but we didn't get to talk about it. Kyren Williams signed a new 3-year, $33 million extension. That includes $23 million guaranteed per Adam Schefter. 24 years old. He made it clear that he wanted to sign an extension with the Los Angeles Rams. I believe that was about 2 weeks ago. And they were able to do it. So the $33 million extension gives Kyren Williams the 7th highest average annual salary at the position. And this is something that, like I said he wanted to get that extension done, and the Rams said, all right, here we go. So good day.
Yeah, look, he had another good season. Wasn't as efficient as the year before, but the bottom line is they just give him the football. And even though they have drafted running backs now 2 straight years, it's pretty clear when Kyren Williams is on the field and healthy, they are going to give him a big workload. And this contract shows it's likely going to continue. So my concern going into last year just was he going to be able to hold up over another big workload, because he's like 5'9", 202, and
Yeah.
we did see him miss 5 games in 2023 when he had that big season, and he even had some issues in the offseason. So that was a little concerning for me. And then he goes out there, has 316 carries, scores 14 rushing, 2 receiving. So and generally you're seeing him go in the third round right now, sometimes late second, but it's usually the third round. So it's still a solid price for Kyren Williams if you still believe in him. And clearly the Rams do by paying him this money.
Yeah, he's going around, underdog a little bit different, right? But he's going around pick 35 over there, and he's just consistently in the 20s, 25, 25 on Yahoo. Sleeper, he's at 26, 27 on ESPN. The most expensive place you're going to get him is CBS, pick 13, right at the
Yeah,
1-2
that
turn.
is too
That's
early.
expensive. But so, we're going to get more drafts coming through CBS, so maybe that evens out a little bit here in a few weeks. But you mentioned it, Adam. I mean, I didn't get a lot of Kyren Williams last season, and from an efficiency standpoint, from the stats from 2024, it wasn't, if you look at those stats, it wasn't amazing. Like, we look at yards per carry, he was 25th. You look at yards after contact per carry, 27th, 29th in explosive run rate. Yards per route run was 28th as well. But if they didn't do it last season, right? That was the thing that we talked about. Blake Corum was there. I know they drafted Jarquez Hunter, and you can still draft those guys, but those are pure handcuffs, it feels like, Adam, because if they didn't do it last season, from an efficiency standpoint or whatever else, you're kind of just drafting those guys with the thought that if Kyren were to go down, those two, more so, would you say more so Blake Corum? Because that's who I'm thinking is in line for the work. If he were to go down, and if you're looking for a pure handcuff to Kyren Williams, it's going to be Blake Corum.
I'm not sure we
Or
know the answer
Jarquez
to that
Hunter.
yet. I'm not sure
Okay.
we know the answer yet. But yeah, I guess if you had to pick one now, you'd probably go Corum, right?
Yeah, let
But
me see who's more expensive. Let me see who people are
it
drafting.
might be Hunter, right? People are enamored with
Yeah,
the
we
younger
always love the
rookie.
rookies.
Yeah, it's like it's
Shiny new
crazy.
toys.
But Williams had 43% of the Rams' total touches last season.
Yeah.
43%. And he has 31 touchdowns over the last 2 years.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. And again, I'm this season. I just haven't. I looked after we saw this news, and I said to myself, I'm not fading Kyren Williams, of course, because of what we saw last season. But I don't have much of him, Adam. I don't know if you do, but I might need to change that here in the next couple of weeks because it's making me a little bit nervous. I don't have enough.
Yeah, I don't have a lot either. And got burned by it last year. So
It couldn't happen twice in a row.
look, in the right spot, I'll take him. Again, the workload is there. You could say whatever you
Yeah.
want. I mean, the Rams showed they are committed to giving him the ball, and they really don't split. It's really Kyren Williams. Now, maybe we do see the backup running backs involved a little bit more this year, but I don't think it's going to be a substantial amount that's really going to cut into Kyren Williams.
I don't either. And both of those guys, so Jarquez Hunter is the running back that they drafted this season in 2025. And then Blake Corum was one that we talked about last season. But they're pretty much, I will say Blake Corum is a little bit is going earlier than Jarquez Hunter in specific platforms like Yahoo, like Sleeper, ESPN as well. But if you're looking at, Underdog, they're basically right there at 208, 214. So it's kind of been a toss up a little bit here.
Yeah, and look how late it is because
Yeah.
people are just not sure. And also, it's a situation where Kyren Williams is the guy.
Yep. And I feels like that's not going to change, especially with a $33 million extension. So we just need more, Adam. That's what it comes down to. We need more Kyren Williams, or we're going to get a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit nervous towards the start of the season. I'll say, yikes, didn't get enough there. But again, it's a good look, and we'll have to wait. Is it a wait and see situation? These preseason games, see if Jarquez Hunter, Blake Corum, to figure out really which one's the pure handcuff to Kyren Williams, or are you just taking shots on both,
Uh, I want to
or
see.
neither? Say neither.
Look, probably. So in a draft that's 20 rounds, they'll both be drafted. If it's 16 rounds, I don't think either guy will be drafted, or maybe in the final round. So, but yeah, probably not. I don't even know if the Kyren Williams manager is going to take those guys either.
Probably we don't prioritize talking about his handcuff as much as we do with others, like a Tyler Algier, like a Ray Davis, a Trey Benson. We talk about those guys a lot, but Kyron has shown that he's able to keep up that workload. He's a young running back. So it's true. We don't usually talk about him in that light, saying, hey, make sure you get Blake Corum or Jarquez Hunter. So it does feel like, especially if you're in leagues where it's just 12 team, like Adam said, you don't have much on the bench. You could get those guys maybe off the waiver wire if something were to happen. But again, good news over there for Kyren Williams signing that 3-year, $33 million extension. We got it's bad news for Jordan Addison, but we finally got clarity here, Adam, and it is a 3-game suspension for Jordan Addison from the NFL. So he received that suspension for the first 3 games of the NFL season. He violated the league's substances of abuse policy. It felt like a long time ago. So he is eligible now to return for the Vikings Week 4 game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dublin. So they're going over there and playing that game. And he is allowed to continue to participate in all training camp activities for the Vikings, preseason games, all of that stuff. But yeah, it felt like a long time. And I think it was July last year it happened. And we were waiting at him for any kind of suspension. So now we get 3 games, which it feels like 3 games. If you are drafting Jordan Addison, that is not the end of the world, right? You just have to be careful when you're drafting to make sure you realize you're taking zeros there and to draft accordingly around other wide receivers that you can put in his place at the time.
Yes, you're not taking zeros because you're replacing him. So,
Exactly.
yeah. I think this was priced in already to anyone who was doing rankings. We all knew a suspension was coming, and the likelihood was it was going to be 3 games. We've talked about it. So I don't think there's any surprise here. If you did draft him, it comes at a time where the beginning of the season, right? There will be no bye weeks. Most of your roster should be healthy. Of course, there will be injuries week 1, week 2, and before it. But you hope that your roster is healthy and you can deal with it. Now, I've said this before. This is where roster construction is very important. And this is also why I hate the overall rankings list, because if someone follows an overall rankings list, they could come out of the draft with like Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin, Rashee
Yeah.
Rice, Brandon Ayuk, any combination of that. That's a problem. If you're going to draft Addison, you're going to have to not take the risk on some of these other players. So that's something that you have to keep in mind, because you don't want to draft 2, 3 players that you know for sure are all going to miss the beginning of the season. So now
Yeah.
you have 3 bench spots with guys who are missing time, and some of you have a backup quarterback. Some of you might have a backup tight end. Now, there you go. Most of your bench is taken. What's going to happen when someone on Sunday morning gets scratched last minute? Do you have a replacement? So that's where the roster construction is extremely important. You can take Addison, but what is the rest of your roster combined with it? That means you can not take as much risk on the rest of the roster. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself in a position where you might get off to a really slow start, and you don't want to do that. So, again, the 3 games, the good thing is no bye weeks.
Yeah.
You know this going in. If you drafted already, you should have been known that this was coming. And if you are drafting in the weeks ahead, now you know for sure that he's missing the first 3 games, and just prepare accordingly. But shouldn't really change him. He still can be a high wide receiver 3. We've seen the touchdowns that he scored in the first 2 seasons. Now he's going to have to get some preseason work with McCarthy, a lot of it, to get acclimated to a new quarterback. And there could be an adjustment period. I also see, too, the Vikings play overseas week 4 and 5.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in Dublin.
And then they have a bye.
And then they have
week
the bye
6.
week 6 is the one that I wanted to mention, where it's just, make sure if the wide receiver you're drafting, or the one you're drafting around Jordan Addison, the one that we say, hey, you're not going to take zeros because you're going to take this guy, just make sure his bye week isn't week 6 as well, because that's where it could hurt you a little bit.
Yeah, are you concerned about a slow start then, missing the first 3 weeks and then 2 weeks overseas, then a
Listen,
bye?
we always talk about those overseas games.
Yeah.
They're a little bit difficult, where it's just it's really kind of hard to pinpoint how these players are going to look. The Bears is one that I remember a lot from last season, where they started off really well, and we were like, okay, this Bears team like looking pretty good. But I do worry about that. But I don't know if I worry about it with I don't know if I worry about that with Jordan Addison. Or I'll take it into account a little bit, but again, I think it's baked into his price, where I'm kind of okay with it. He is criminally underrated on ESPN. He's going pick 105 at him on ESPN. To compare it to others, he's going pick 70 on Sleeper, 69 on Underdog, and 80 on CBS. So I'm not. I can see where people would be worried about it. I'm not, but I'm again making sure that the wide receivers I take around him, if I am taking him, that I don't have any of those worries, especially, the bye week you kind of do want to pay attention to a little bit. I know you and I talk about how we don't take that too much into account. We just want to make sure that not all of our players are going to be on the same bye week, but going to Dublin, then coming back and having a bye is going to be important to realize when you're drafting Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I think I'm still open to drafting him at this point, and it just means though you can't take as much other risk, because you don't want to have a situation where you have like 3, 4 guys already missing time,
Yeah.
and then other injuries are going to find you. Right now we're already seeing injuries pop up every single day, and a lot of them might not be anything. These guys could be ready week 1, but we all know week 1 comes, we're going to be hit with a couple of injuries.
Yeah.
Same thing in week 2, and that's the only issue. But 3 games, not a big deal, because again, you're not taking zeros. You'll have a replacement, and if you can get a little bit of a discount on a guy, then you can take it.
This is for larger league formats, because a lot of the time he's probably going to go undrafted. But Jalen Naylor, just to finish this off, is the guy that we've heard will probably take a good amount of those reps while Jordan Addison is out. So I know we had a caller a couple weeks ago talking about Jalen Naylor. It's not saying sell for him in Dynasty, buy him in Dynasty, or anything like that. But those 14 team leagues, or the leagues that we're in, Adam, that have a ton of bench spots, he might be one where you take kind of late, and you're able to maybe potentially use him, depending on if you've got injuries or anything else like that before the season starts. He's going to be the one stepping up.
Yeah, I think it also is a boost for Hawkinson too. He should
Oh yeah.
see an increase in targets. They do have the Bengals in week 3. That could be a
Do
shootout.
they? Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that. I've been taking I like TJ Hawkinson this season. Not that we didn't like him last season, but coming off the injury, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, this feels a lot better going into the 2025 season than it did last year, where he came back week 8, I believe.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
coming back from the injury, but yeah, he should be in a good spot with Addison missing some time. We all know just Jefferson's going to get all of his targets, but yeah, Hawkinson will get a boost here, and like you said, Naylor for that period. But again, you do not need to draft him. I mean, it might
No.
be in a
Like,
last round or something.
yeah, late round dart throw again in larger leagues though. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're in a the regular 12 team with the regular bench spots, it's not necessarily something you have to do. You could if you get an injury in week 1 or week 2, you could easily pick him up probably off the waiver wire. And we'll just keep watching Justin Jefferson's hamstring injury. They said it's all good, but nothing to freak out over or anything like that. But just we'll keep an eye on that. But at least we got some clarity here with Jordan Addison again, going to be suspended by the NFL for 3 games. Then they go. You said they got 2 games in Dublin.
No, I think it's
Just
London
one?
and Dublin.
Oh,
So
London and Dublin. That's
two
fun.
games back to back overseas.
Wow. I mean, at least they're staying over there, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
I
I mean,
think
that's a
Jacksonville
difference.
was it Jacksonville who did that last year too?
Uh-huh.
There was a team
Yeah.
that stayed there.
Yeah. So, I mean, at least they're, staying over there, not flying back and forth. I think that makes a difference too. Should we go on the road? Should we
Yeah, let's
request
do
some?
it.
Yeah, yeah. Should we go over
Propose
there?
that. Let's see if that gets covered.
What's the time difference here? What time do we have to wake up to do a 7 a.m. Pacific time show? We'll figure we can do that
I'll
math in the
deal with it.
break.
Or we
Okay.
won't sleep. I know you need
Perfect.
sleep, but
No, no, I will sleep. If you want to stay up all night and then do the show, yeah, whoever we need to talk to, we'll get on that and make sure make sure we're in Dublin for a week for this show. We're gonna continue on here. We know a lot of people are rejoining us and getting ready for their drafts. We appreciate everyone that's hung out with us all summer long, though. So we're kind of gonna recap, go through our favorite late round quarterbacks, guys that we have said there's a deep quarterback room right here where you could wait if you don't get one of the elite guys. We've got guys that you can target instead. Have to mention the Keenan Allen news as well. We're going to go through all of that coming up next. Talking quarterbacks that we're looking at, our favorite late round quarterbacks, Adam, because sometimes you don't get to have the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons of the world. And you, at that point, sometimes have to wait. And I think that's a quarterback strategy that we can talk about here. I've seen, a couple questions over on Twitter, on X. So if you guys want to send those in just about strategies with quarterbacks, we'll get to those at the end of this segment here at Valenzuela17 at Adam Ronis. But that's kind of the one thing, Adam, where, if you're depending on what type of draft you're going into, super flex, redraft, all of those different kinds of things, we're looking at these quarterbacks and saying, okay, where do I want to go with this? What quarterbacks do I want to target? And you and I have some really good late round quarterbacks that we say, all right, we can wait in the range of the Kyler Murray's, Brock Purdy's, Patrick Mahomes is going where they're going in drafts. We say, okay, we don't necessarily want to take guys this early or right in the middle of those drafts, and we say, hey, we can wait because we've got some good late round quarterbacks that we like for this season.
yeah, and everyone has their different strategy at quarterback. I actually do think this year it's fine taking one of those elite quarterbacks. In some drafts, you're seeing them fall to the third, fourth round,
I saw you
and
get Joe Burrow yesterday in a draft
it
for
was
Sirius. Oh,
super
okay.
flex league. So I had pick 5, and the first 4 picks were the top 4 quarterbacks. So for me, it was an easy click there to
Yeah.
take Joe Burrow at 5, and then of course people waited on the position.
Yeah, it
So
was
yeah,
Bryce Young. Yeah.
yeah, that was my second quarterback, Bryce Young, in round 6. A lot of the top 20 were gone at that point. So, but that was my strategy going in. I would take one elite quarterback, see how it plays out. And I did see people being patient. So I said, all right, I'll wait on my second quarterback and build the rest of the team. So that's typically what I do in a super flex league. But in your home leagues, usually the quarterbacks fly off the board in super flex leagues. People don't have the patience. They're like, oh, I
Yep.
can't miss out on getting my second quarterback. I have to take one now. And you don't really need to do it. But I think the draft that we saw over the weekend in the flex league and the Sirius XM host league draft that we saw last night, typically you don't see people wait on the quarterback or be as patient. They usually want to get their 2 quarterbacks in the first 3 to 4 rounds.
Just in case you find yourself not getting one of those top 10 quarterbacks, which I think, we've talked about before, but the top 10, and we tier them out at fantasylife.com, so you guys can go and check that out. But, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts probably in the tier their own, tier 1. Joe Burrow you can throw in there. But the middle of the pack right here is Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes. Those are the guys that we've talked about here too, Adam. So I want to make sure we're talking about Drake Maye to start, because he's been one that both of us have talked about this offseason. He's obviously in a prime age range at 23. Last season, 15 fantasy points per game. He's going around pick 132, depending on where you're looking, 157 over on ESPN. That puts him in round 11 or 12. Last season, Adam, when you look at it, it wasn't a great year as a rookie, right? Only 208 passing yards per game. When we look at it, though, he averaged 235 in the games where he played 90% of the snaps, because he wasn't a starter right away. And then he also logged 37 rushing yards for 17.1 fantasy points per game. And what I always point out to people, Adam, last season with Drake Maye, is that he was working with not a good group of wide receivers. And I know people are going to look at Stefon Diggs and say, really, how big of an upgrade is Stefon Diggs to this team? But I do think adding the veteran presence helps. They went out and got Kyle Williams in round 3 as well. So I think they did, and I think they did enough to help Drake Maye this offseason take a step forward with Mike Vrabel. We know that historically he is more he's more conservative, right? They win close games. They look to rush to create efficiency in the passing game. But I still really like Drake Maye as someone, if I miss out on those top guys, like you said, Adam, or if I want to, make sure to get better wide receivers and elite tight end in that range, I'm very, very comfortable waiting for Drake Maye as a quarterback.
Me too, and you could really get him in most formats as a QB2, and I think he could wind up being your every week starter. He also brings that element of rushing too. He averaged 38.3 rushing yards in his 11 full starts. I'm taking away week 18 where he played one series, and that was with not many designed runs. So if he could run a little bit more or keep that pace up, that's going to be fine, because again, he didn't play the entire season. The Diggs addition was huge, I think, even if you don't believe in him in fantasy, and he's looked better from everything that I've seen.
hmm
And, sometimes guys just come back quickly from these injuries and are fine, even though he is a little bit older. But I actually am more open to drafting him. I don't know if I might only have in one like best ball league,
hmm
but I'm definitely more open to taking him, especially in PPR formats, because I think he could pile up the catches, and he was solid last year. So I think that veteran will certainly help Drake Maye. So yeah, he's in a good spot. If I'm in a position where I'm taking two quarterbacks, I want him to be one of them. And again, I think there's a chance that we look at him and he becomes someone that we feel comfortable starting every week.
Let's go over to Justin Fields and see if we feel the same way. I know there's been some things around camp, Adam, that he hasn't had a
Some?
good. That's I'm trying to be nice. I'm the nice one here. That reports are that it hasn't looked good. Which again, we have to take with a grain of salt a little bit, but we can talk about if we're a little bit nervous about Justin Fields. But what we do know about Justin Fields here is that he is going in around round 10. He's given us in fantasy points per game over the last 3 seasons 17.4, 19.1, and most recently 20.6 over there with the Steelers. It was only 6 games, so I know it was a smaller sample size. But the one thing with Fields, besides the 2-year, $40 million contract, $30 million guaranteed, that tells me, Adam, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder unless the play is bad, and maybe we've seen that in training camp. He just has to get it out now. But it's the rushing ability that he brings. That is why we are talking about Justin Fields. Real life quarterback Justin Fields is not someone you want to argue with that should be taken inside the top 10. But for fantasy football, he is right in that range in rankings. So you can see him right inside the top 10, outside, but definitely inside the top 12. And I look at the floor ceiling projection model that we have at fantasylife.com. Floor is 15.6 points per game. Ceiling is 23.7 points per game. But it's the rushing ability that he brings that is why we keep talking about him as a quarterback that we're okay waiting on and potentially getting.
Yeah, look, he also does not have a lot of weapons here. Let's be real about this right now, right? Look at the wide receivers they have. I mean, it's Garrett Wilson
He's got
and not
Garrett.
much else.
That's okay.
I mean,
No,
but I'm
it's
saying
not.
though, like for what you expect Fields to do here in these practices, and again, this means nothing. If you're changing your opinion based on the last 3 days of him not completing passes and looking good. Come on, man. Like, again, we already know what the situation is with Fields. It's his rushing upside for fantasy, averaging 50 rushing yards per game in his career. So I will say this, though. I guess that's the one concern. Yes, they paid him, but if he does go out there and suck for 3-4 weeks, why wouldn't they go to Tyrod Taylor, right? It's possible. I think
Yeah.
we haven't talked about that, but I think that possibility exists. It's unlikely to happen, but if he does have performances like what's being talked about at practice, it's certainly possible it could happen,
You don't think he
especially.
has a longer leash though? Just because it's a new Aaron Glenn's new. They're just
Yeah, but
I
if
feel
it's
like it's
really
okay.
bad,
If it's okay,
I could
yes.
see them
If
making a
it's
change.
really bad, like really bad, I could see it. But we know he's not going to be. We already kind of know going into the season, he's not this prolific passer, and I don't think even in his best games that he's going to. I don't think overnight we're going to see that change. I just really think it's more the rushing upside. We only have him projected for 2,800 yards. It's just we know what he brings through the air, and I know it's not that much, but it's the other side. It's 826 and a half projected rushing yards from Justin Fields. That's second. That's behind Lamar Jackson. That keeps him in the conversation. I do agree. If it's completely awful, then yes, you could see a change. Who's their backup? Tyrod
Tyrod
Taylor?
Taylor, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could see it. I hope that doesn't happen. That would really suck.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to happen. It's just we have not really talked about it, and I think the possibility does exist. But with that said, I'm still willing to draft Fields for fantasy because we just seen it anytime he's on the field, he tends to finish as a QB1, even with his inability to be accurate and miss throws. And we'll look at his completion percentage, and he still gets it done for fantasy. And they are going to be a run heavy team. I mean, it's
Yes.
clear they want to run the football, and Fields is a massive part of that. He's going to have a lot of opportunities to get carries every single game. So if this is going to push down his price, great, better for us or those that want to draft Fields.
It's our burner accounts that are sending those tweets and videos. We're like, look at how bad he looks. Everyone, don't draft him. But you're right. I mean, over the last 3 seasons, too, just to continue talking about the rushing upside, he's been fourth in designed rush attempts at 21%, and he's had a 12% scramble rate, which is first among quarterbacks. So we know what he brings on the ground. Is just here's the one thing though, because you and I always talk about strategy, and when we talk about late round quarterbacks, sometimes we do say maybe it's good to go and get a second quarterback. If you're drafting Justin Fields, which like I said, depending on where you go, he's a top 10 quarterback in some rankings. He's definitely a top 10 quarterback over on Underdog. But you rarely see him go outside the top 12. Is Justin Fields a quarterback though? Again, I know it's going to depend on bench spots, but is he someone that we're not worried, but there is a chance that maybe he's bad? Do you draft a second quarterback just in case?
Yeah, if you have the ability to, if you have the bench space, then I think you can. Again, if you only have 5, 6 bench spots, I'd rather not take that second quarterback. It also depends on what everyone else in the draft room was doing too. Like if half the teams don't take a backup and you see that, then you go, okay, there's going to be guys available on waivers. And say in a 12-team league, maybe say 8, 9 teams take what, there probably still will be a couple good ones on waivers. So maybe not. Yeah, but in a league with 18 to 20 roster spots, I typically take a second quarterback because you have the bench space to do it. So
Mhm.
almost everyone else will. And some teams take 3 quarterbacks in these leagues with 20
Yep.
roster spots, which I don't get at all. I
I
just
don't
don't
think
get
you
it.
need to. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's a
I don't want to
waste.
say it
You're going to
bugs
wind up
me,
cutting
but
them. I
yeah,
see it every year. You wind up cutting that third quarterback because you're like, oh, well, there's injuries and bye weeks. I don't have room. Well, I could have told you that before the draft, but you guys don't listen. But anyway, by the way,
you're
Justin Fields rushing yards prop
what's it at?
650 and a half
The
on
over.
DraftKings and
Hammer
FanDuel.
the over. Doesn't it feel that I would hammer the over, would you not?
Yeah, look, the only reason he wouldn't get there is he gets pulled from the job or
Yes.
injury because, again, averaging 50 rushing yards per game in his career. So if he plays the full season and hits his average, he'll go over that. And we know the Jets are going to give him a lot of opportunities to run.
He's just one of those quarterbacks that we've said. Maybe you draft him in some games, you just look away. You don't want to
Yeah.
watch him the whole time. And then you come back and then you check the fantasy scores and you say, "Oh, okay, he's gotten me, 28 fantasy points today. That's fantastic." But it's probably not going to be pretty. And that's why again, we're projecting him for that however many passing yards, like a 64% completion percentage. So, might not be pretty every single time, but I do agree with you though on the quarterback. Just to finish that out, three quarterbacks. It just feels unnecessary because, especially Adam, that's the range that we talk about going for those later round dart throw running backs that do have the potential to help your team way more than a third quarterback on your roster that you're eventually going to cut. That's
And
what you look
especially
at.
now, like if you're drafting now and basically your waiver wire doesn't open for a month, you want to have running backs on your roster. We've already seen several running backs where they were at the end of the draft and
Mhm.
all of a sudden they're moving up based on reports, increased role, whatever it is. So, like, could you imagine like a month or two ago, like one of those late round picks would have been Dylan Sampson? Where does he
Yeah.
go now?
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
whole point. You want to take as many chances on these running backs because their roles can instantly change due to an injury or impressive performance in practice, training camp, and the coaches move them up. So you're already seeing it. There's a lot of running backs that maybe weren't even being drafted or taken in the last rounds that are now moving up to the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th round.
Yep, exactly. So just pay attention to those. Again, fantasylife.com. We've got the ADP tool that Adam and I always reference on this show that you can check out. Any of the projections that you hear us talking about as well, all over there at fantasylife.com. So if you're getting ready for your drafts, go over there, use that code SXM20. That gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Tier 1 or Tier 2 subscription. But we've got great tools to get you ready for those drafts, dominating the fantasy football season. So again, SXM20 gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription because we've got the best listeners here. We're going to make sure to look through some of your questions, see what's going on the phone lines, talk about more quarterbacks and some potential Adam bounce back players. Yes, we will talk about Kyler Murray because I need to. We haven't talked about him enough. We're going to go through it coming up next. And Adam says we don't play his music. What is this then?
That's true. So I guess you just told them to play it so to make
We're
a
in the
point.
same
Now we're
commercial
back to
breaks
Sabrina
together.
Carpenter the rest of the show. I see how this works.
We've had a lack of Taylor Swift. I think the I think
No,
I
I
think
think we're good
our-
with that.
I
I'm
think
all right
people
with
are, I
that.
was gonna say I think our listeners like that actually. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here, Fantasy Life, going through more of the bounce back players we need to talk about. Same with our late round quarterbacks. But before we do that, Adam, we've said that we're here to help anyone and everyone who calls in for draft questions. And the phone line is open. You can call in 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call in button on the Sirius XM app. Let's go out really quickly here before we dive into the other content. Let's go out to Rich in Philly. Rich, what do you got for us?
Soldier and breakfast anytime lover down here in Seattle City for family vacation. But my big tub of
Hey,
folders
Rich, you got
to
us?
enjoy while I'm looking at the beach here. Hear me?
All right, we'll
Can
get
you
you
hear
Rich
me?
later. Oh, yep.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Hey, fellow Folgers and breakfast anytime lover down in Seattle
Yes.
City on vacation with the family, enjoying my nice big Costco-sized Folger crystals here while I'm looking at the beach. And I have to tell you, Kendall, I kind of get a thrill whenever you do that little coming up next, that pause. And then, like, some months ago, you didn't pause. You just said coming up next. And I wasn't right the rest of that day. I just had to tell you that.
Perfect.
Anyway, so I started a keeper league last year, and it's a one-round penalty for any keepers. And now the second year and years forward, I'm trying to decide, do you give any preference to the last place team and have the first place team pick last kind of thing? I was thinking of doing actually a derby style for the 6 teams that didn't make the playoffs and have them pick their spot, because some people might like a later spot, and then the 4 teams that didn't make the championship game, do them next, and then have the last 2 be the last 2. I was just wondering if you treat it like a regular league where it's just random, or if you give preference to try and keep parity.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good question. Appreciate you. Do you see this, Adam? The Folgers love. I mean, come on, Rich gets it. He's on vacation with his family. They've got the jumbo Folgers. That's how you do it. First of
I mean,
all.
look at you planting
Whatever.
callers
Yeah,
here
checks in the
to
mail, Rich.
boost you up.
Appreciate it.
Jeez.
But okay, so determining draft order. This isn't a new league though, Adam. So determining draft order for a keeper league, because some people could say, hey, we're just going to simply slot next year's draft from worst to first. I've seen others where you reward. I mean, you reward the worst teams in the first two rounds. So the worst team will get the first pick in round one and the first pick of round two, and you go from there. Is there any other way that you would look at it, Adam, and do it differently?
Yeah, I don't think you can do the worst to first now. Like that has to be instituted before. So say you want to go that route, you would tell teams now before the year, hey, next year and going forward, this is what we're going to do. It's going to be worst to first. But for this year, yeah, I mean, I guess you could just do it randomly at this point. But whatever you institute in these keeper leagues, make sure it is done ahead of time
Mhm.
so people know.
Yeah, and then the champion of the league would get the last pick in rounds,
Yeah.
one and two if you do it that way. But like Adam said, just make sure the league knows and they're all good with it, and then you do it that way moving forward. So appreciate you calling in, Rich. Again, phone number 888-963-2682. I've got my Folgers right here, Adam. It's we're living life now. Potential breakout players. Then we'll continue getting to your phone calls. We see your questions over there on X as well at Valenzuela 17 at Adam Ronis. If you can't get through on the phone lines or you can't call in right now, make sure to send them our way over there. Can we, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray? I feel like we could pair them up together and see what our expectations are for Marvin Harrison Jr., who came in last season, and I was one of them. I was reaching actually for Marvin Harrison Jr. I was taking him sometimes on the 1-2 turn. I know I did that in our GST league, and then went back around and got Kyler Murray, and it wasn't a great year. 885 yards, and 7 or 8 touchdowns from last season. He had the targets, he had everything there, but it felt like the chemistry, Adam, was something that just wasn't there between him and Kyler Murray. So between, Marvin Harrison Jr., we can talk about, or we can talk about both. Is he a potential bounce back candidate for you?
For Harrison, yeah. I mean, obviously, there were times that it was going well and times where they looked like they weren't even practicing together. That's how bad the chemistry looked between Harrison and Murray. But I would expect a bounce back season from him. We know he was an extremely talented receiver coming out, and in a year, I guess it made it worse because you had the other rookies really going off, Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors, Brian Thomas. And Harrison was most of the time the first receiver off the board in those drafts. So it did seem late in the year that it did get better. 5 of the last 6 games, 62.5% of his targets were caught. So I do think it will get better. And you're seeing Harrison generally go. I thought he would be a little bit cheaper this year, and it's
He
really
is
not
not.
happening. Yeah,
No. That's the
that
only
might.
thing that it doesn't concern me, but it stings because you would expect to have, somewhat of a discount, and you're not getting that. So it feels a little bit It feels more risky than it should be this season. He's going pick 28 on Underdog, 49 on ESPN, 35 on Sleeper. Yeah, you don't get a
Yeah,
discount with it. Let's
you
just say
don't.
that.
So you do need him to bounce back, but I do think he will bounce back.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're at least hoping, right? Because it was all right there. It was a bad first season, but he has this chance to improve in year two, especially as someone. I just, again, recency bias is something that you have to check and say, okay, this guy was called a generational talent for a reason. All of a sudden, he doesn't lose all that talent in a year. It just is something that wasn't unlocked last season. So we've kind of seen it, like the underlying data is all over the place. We hope that his connection with Kyler Murray is one that gets better. Kyler Murray, for you, is he a potential bounce back? Because he said everything right this offseason, right? I want to run more. I didn't feel 100% last season and trust myself coming off that injury. He feels more like himself now. I mean, he's been saying all the right things. It's just if we believe it or not.
Well, one thing on Harrison,
Oh
they
yeah.
have to do a better job of using him because too many goal routes, and it wasn't there. He was very good over the middle. I don't know why they just don't do that more. Get him those easy targets because it was working. So that's the one concern you have with the Cardinals is the design of the offense.
Mhm.
With Drew Petzing as the offensive coordinator, that's my biggest concern here. So they need to get Harrison easier targets.
Like more short, intermediate.
Yeah, he was very good at it. If you do that, that'll get him going. It'll open things up. So as far as Kyler Murray, I haven't been drafting him. And
talk about expensive too, as well.
Yeah,
He's one that's not. I mean, again, I thought both of these guys would be. Kyler, I guess, is more understandable because what he brings on the ground, right, with his legs. But he is not cheap either.
Yeah, he's sometimes you see him go 8th, 9th quarterback off the board. You know, if you get him past that, then yeah, I'm more open to it. Like I've been saying, there's a cluster of quarterbacks in that tier that I like a bunch of them, and it's just where you are in the draft, and do you take the first guy, or do you say, all right, I'm going to wait and see what comes back to me? So, yeah, there's a few that you obviously have a preference for, but there's a lot of them in a similar tier that I like similarly, and I'll just take whoever falls to me. But with Murray, as we've talked about, he's got to run more. That's going to be the key. If he does take off and run, and he spoke about it, how I guess he didn't feel 100%, and there were times he just didn't want to run. He'd have an open lane, and he just wouldn't take it. He would look to pass instead. So if he gets back to that, that's really going to help him because we know he's not giving you 30 touchdown passes. He's just not. We've seen it. And so in order for him to be really good in fantasy, he's got to run more. And we saw it early in his career, and we just didn't see the attempts as high last year. So if what he says is true, and he is going to run more, then that would bode well for fantasy. But he hasn't found his way out on my teams yet.
If Marvin Harrison Jr. steps up like we hope he does in a bigger way for 2025, you already pair him with Trey McBride, who we know is hopefully going to come down with more touchdowns than 2 that we got last season. Then you've got Kyler Murray. I mean, he's shown it to us, like you said, from 2019 to 2021. He actually averaged a touchdown pass on 5% of his passes, but that's fallen to 3.7%, Adam. So we know through the air it needs to get better. On the ground, hopefully he says that he is feeling more like himself, that he's way behind, or he's way ahead of now the injury. The injury is way behind him now. So hopefully we see both of those guys step up in big ways. We're going to continue talking through more potential bounce back players, talk through some late round quarterbacks as well. We're going to do that here coming up next. Talking through more bounce back candidates, going through some of our late round quarterbacks that we like to have on our teams. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Use that code SXM20. Again, gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription at fantasylife.com, getting you ready for your drafts. We're also getting people ready, Adam, for their drafts, making sure we go out to the phone lines here. If you've got questions for us and can't call in, make sure you send us in a message at Valenzuela17 at Adam Ronis over there on X, on Twitter. Let's go out and do another question here on the phone lines and then continue through bounce back players. Let's go out to David in Oklahoma City. David, what do you got for us? David? All right, maybe later. Maybe later for David.
Maybe David's taking a nap.
Maybe David. You're jealous?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, honestly, I was gonna say, don't bring up naps because you don't take them, and so you're not gonna be able to do those. Okay, let's bring up then bounce back candidates, because I feel like this is one where I mean, I've gotten stuck on this Adam, but you mentioned Tyreek Hill in the break, so let's bring up what the potential is for a bounce back from Tyreek Hill. Because he is still going off the board. I mean, I think we still have him ranked as wide receiver 12, and consensus ADP has him also at wide receiver 12. So he's going, in that range of T. Higgins, Marvin, Harrison Jr., Lad McConkey. Bounce back season for Tyreek Hill. What do you think?
So the reason why he goes in that area is something I've talked about. You don't feel good about a lot of those wide receivers. When you're in that range, you can find something wrong with all of them. Now, with Tyreek, so he is missing practice today with an undisclosed injury. The speed is still there. I don't know. I just get bad vibes with Tyreek Hill and this whole situation with Miami. So I'm going to say no. I haven't taken him anywhere. Like the price too. Like I just don't feel comfortable. And I could easily look bad because it was just 2 years ago. He had 171 targets and had 1,799 yards and 13 touchdowns, and it looked like he was on pace for 2,000 yards. But it really fell off last year. You could say it was the wrist injury. It was the offense just throwing short passes and, teams taking away the deep pass. It didn't allow them to get the ball to Tyreek. But come on, you got a player like Tyreek Hill. How did they not get the ball in his hands, even on short slants, and let him do his thing after the catch? So a very weird situation there. So, yeah, I don't feel good about Tyreek Hill this year.
Do you feel better with Jonnu gone though? That like now that Jonnu's not in the picture, did that change your opinion at all?
It
Because
actually upgraded Jalen Waddle for me.
oh, okay.
I think he's the guy I feel better about.
Mm.
And
But
it's
at the end of the
been
day, is it just a no maybe from these receivers? Is it the other question though too that I see people ask a lot, is it a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle question, or is it how many games are we actually going to get to a Tagovailoa healthy kind of question?
Well, that's the key for this entire offense. You can go through the splits. You see it with Devin Achane, is that with Tua there, he's way better without him. It falls apart. And I think you can make the case for this entire offense for all those guys. But Tyreek Hill, again, you're talking late second, early third. I always judge by, hey, what do you do when you're on the clock? I have not been able to click draft on Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I've been more like I said, Lad McConkey's in that range. I'm getting, and again, it just depends on where you're drafting from as well. AJ Brown is there as well. T Higgins, I've had a good amount of T Higgins this season. Marvin Harrison Jr., who we just talked about. So I understand it. Bad vibes. You always have to trust your gut with the bad vibes, Adam. Right?
Yeah, and he wasn't at an elite level last year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, we're going to continue on. It is our favorite time of the day. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler. Continue taking your calls coming up next. Fantasy football is life. This is Fantasy Life with us, Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us on this Wednesday. Whoa,
Yes, it's Wednesday. You forget?
Had to look it up really quickly. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We're halfway through the week and we are yes, there we go. And we are one step closer, one day closer to your drafts more than likely here. So make sure you go to fantasylife.com. Make sure you check out that newsletter that we mentioned here. The Fantasy Life newsletter is 100% free in your inbox 7 days a week. So you can go sign up for that over at fantasylife.com and you can check out all the new upgrades that we have to our website. You can sync your leagues and get instant analysis and great advice from fantasylife.com. We've got our rankings, we've got our tools with the ADP tool, the projections. We've got a mock draft simulator. If you need to practice before you go into your drafts, make sure you head over there. Utilization suite is amazing. The best ball hub, you can see what your exposure is looking like between all the players that you've drafted. Everything is just amazing. Can't say any more great things about it. So make sure you head over there, fantasylife.com. Use that code too, because we have the best listeners. You guys deserve that discount. SXM20 gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription. So head over there. SXM20 gets you 20% off. We've got some news, Adam, to get through, and we'll make sure to recap at least what we said at the beginning of the show here, just in case people missed it. But Kyren Williams did sign that 3-year, $33 million extension. That's worth $23 million guaranteed. We kind of said to ourselves, all right, I mean, Blake Corum, Jarquez Hunter, while we could get excited about them, maybe not necessarily guys that we need to roster because we know the workload that Kyren Williams is going to get. And the other one that we talked about earlier in the show is Jordan Addison, suspended for 3 games by the NFL. So he'll be able to come back week 4. They will be away in, what was it? Dublin, right? That'll be a fun game. And then
London.
And London. So he's got, international games and then they go on a bye, but still 3 games is kind of what we expected. And that doesn't, for you, Adam, that doesn't mean that you're not drafting Jordan Addison. You're just being careful with the guys you take around him because we're not going to take those zeros.
Yeah, again, missing 3 games, not the biggest deal, especially early in the year. No bye weeks then, so you can afford to take him, especially if you're getting him at a little bit of a discount. And we know some people will probably pass on him, and you might be able to get him a little bit later than where he was going. But again, based on any rankings that should have been done, I know for me, there was already priced in knowing that he was going to get a suspension. And I think we all guessed that it would be around 3 games, and that's what it was.
Look at us. It's like we're good at our jobs or something. It's like we read everything. It's great. So yeah, 3 games for Jordan Addison. And that's what it comes down to. You're going to see it in his draft cost, like Adam said. But just make sure, you just don't want to, here's the thing, Adam, that we said earlier. You just don't want to be taking too many risks with guys that we know might not, start the season off well. It's the Chris Godwins. We still don't know about Rashee Rice and his suspension. So you just want to be a little bit Brandon Ayuk. You just want want to be cautious. If you're already going to take a Jordan Addison, who we know is going to be out for the start of the season for 3 games, be careful taking any of those other guys that you're hoping are able to go for week 1, but might not actually get out there. That's where it's
Yeah,
important.
and we talk a lot about some of those players you get at a discount and it's worth taking, but you just cannot put multiple players in that situation on your roster because right now it looks good. You look at the rest of your roster, okay, yeah, my starting lineup is healthy and now when these guys come back, I'm going to make a run. Well, other injuries are going to occur between now and the start of the season. Injuries are going to happen week 1, and some of the timelines for these players coming off injuries are going to get pushed back. So you have to take that into account, and sometimes people don't. They're just thinking long term, which is great. Anyone who's listening or is at fantasylife.com, we all expect you guys to be in the playoffs, and it's good to think long term, but you also have to get there. You have to build a roster that's going to get you through the early portion of the season. And if you have too many guys that are already out due to suspension or dealing with injury, then the roster is going to become a problem.
Yep. And again, it's 3 games for Jordan Addison, and then Kyren Williams got his extension yesterday. So that was good news. Phone number, again, didn't throw it out at the beginning, 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We will absolutely be getting to your phone calls here in the water cooler. Next up with should we be worried or should we not be worried, Adam, it is Matthew Stafford, who has now been reported from Ian Rappaport that he is dealing with an aggravated disc in his back. And that is an injury, like I said, that he's been dealing with this summer, but Rappaport said that it's the aggravated disc that's keeping Stafford off the field. He's receiving treatment for the issue, reportedly got an epidural injection in his back. They said he's progressing well, but he's still week to week. At what point in time do we get a little bit nervous? Now, in drafts, Adam, we weren't walking away with Matthew Stafford as our first and only quarterback. It's obviously more in those super flex leagues, but it does affect, Devontae Adams, who we've talked about in this offense. It'll affect Puka Nacua eventually. When do we start getting worried about maybe Matthew Stafford in this back injury?
You should be a little worried right now, for sure, because, again, he's an older quarterback and back injuries are very tricky, right? They could be a long-term issue. So they need Stafford healthy, especially if you drafted Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. You were hoping it would be Stafford. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup. So that has to be concerned at this point.
Enough to move. Have you moved Puka? I mean, Puka's in people's top 5.
He wasn't. He was not in my top 5, but I did draft him last night in the Sirius XM host league. But as my second wide receiver, remember it's super flex, so I had Brian Thomas and then Puka Nacua made it back, and I was debating. I was like, do I do it? Because I think everyone else was probably pushing him down a little bit, but I said, all right, I'll take him.
It's funny. I did the same thing in the stacked league that I'm in, which you guys can go follow. I've been retweeting some stuff from it at Valenzuela 17, but I took Puka. I didn't feel great about it, Adam, though. I'll say that. But it was one of those things where I said, I want a receiver here. I didn't like any of the a lot of the running backs were taken by that time. So I just took him. But you have to be careful.
And they can say, oh yeah, we expect them to be ready for week 1, but I think you have to have a little caution here with this aggravated disc issue.
Man, you think they would go through the start with Jimmy G? Or you think they'd try and go get
Kirk Cousins?
A Jameis Winston, a Kirk Cousins? I don't know.
Well,
Jimmy G and Devontae Adams don't necessarily go together
that's gonna be
very
fun.
well. We should get the cameras back out there for the Netflix show just to see his reaction if it happens. But again, a little bit of worry with Matthew Stafford now, knowing that it's an aggravated disc in his back, that he's getting treatment for it. They say he's week to week, and they hope that he is able to play in week 1, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see on that one. All right, continuing on. And again, we are going to get to your phone calls, 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We talked about depth charts yesterday, Adam. We don't necessarily love depth charts. They obviously aren't usually the thing that we see towards the start of the season. But the Colts depth chart was hilarious, seeing Daniel Jones or They actually did put or Anthony Richardson as QB1 because they're not going to give us any information on who that QB1 could be. I think I saw yesterday Anthony Richardson will start in the preseason games.
The first one, and then Daniel Jones, the
Oh,
second one.
oh, dang it. Okay. Well, that doesn't give us any kind of clarity. I mean, with this situation, if people are coming in and looking at Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, of course, these guys are in like the last tier of our rankings, right? It's their QB 30 and 31. I think Jackson Dart's the 32nd overall ranked quarterback because he's not even going to get the start for the season. But where does it put you with Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones? Are either of them, we know that Daniel Jones through the air is going to be better than Anthony Richardson, but what Richardson brings on the ground is why we continue to talk about him, because he has averaged 17.4 points over his 2-year career in games where he reached 90% plus of the snaps. Again, hasn't been a lot because he's been so injured, but what's your take right now on the situation with the quarterback battle?
I'm starting to see Richardson go in more drafts now. Obviously, in Superflex leagues, he's going to go. So the Sirius XM Host League draft that we did last night was Superflex. Richardson went in round 9 as the team's third quarterback. And I think that is smart, right? If he's going to get the opportunity to play, we know what he can do on the ground. 499 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns in 11 games last season. So it's starting to feel like it could be Richardson. We mentioned the odds that I saw yesterday were minus 130, Richardson to start. Daniel Jones plus 102, so it's still close, but it has shifted, right? I think a couple weeks ago we all thought, all right, it's looking like Daniel Jones, but neither one has really separated themselves. It's not like both guys are, or it's not like Richardson's completely outplaying Daniel Jones. It's just that he's been a little bit better. So I think you could take him as that second quarterback too, even in a redraft league. So I did this last year with Justin Fields, and looked good early on, and then he lost the job, and you just cut him and move on, and I wound up getting Bo Nick. So I don't mind taking Richardson as a second quarterback now. Not in the, once you get past, QB 20, right?
Yes.
At that point, I think you can take him and say, okay, let's see what happens. And if he does improve and the accuracy is better and he continues to run, then you got yourself a nice backup quarterback. If he doesn't start or gets the first few weeks and doesn't look good, you can just cut him and move on. But he was being drafted 7th quarterback overall last year in that 5 to 8 range.
It burned people.
It did.
Sure.
Trust me. So we always talk. No, I was not in on him.
Oh, okay.
And this is the mistakes. So you know how we go, well, I don't have any of this player. I should get at least one share just in case. That's what I did. It was like one of my last drafts, and everyone was passing on Richardson. And I was like, I don't have any Richardson. What if I'm wrong? What if he goes off? All right, I'll take him.
Yeah.
And yeah, it didn't work out. So sometimes when that fear of missing out, you're better off missing out a lot of times. Maybe there's a reason why you weren't going all drafting that player the entire draft season. And so, yeah,
There's
that one didn't work out. But now you're talking about a guy that's going – the last couple rounds of drafts. So I definitely think in Superflex League as your third quarterback, it's an easy choice. Even though I think I passed up on him and the next team took him. Because like I said, I don't like taking that third quarterback in round 9. It feels too soon for me. And I always know that there's going to be a few quarterbacks that emerge off waivers due to injury or a change in the situation. So I couldn't do it, but I completely understand why someone else did, because if he does start and show improvement with his ability to run, it makes sense. So I am starting to see him, though, get drafted more in those leagues where you start one quarterback. You're starting to see him creep up in the last couple of rounds.
And I was thinking about this last night when it's, sitting down and thinking about drafting Anthony Richardson, because it consumes all of our minds at any point in the day here, Adam. But I was also thinking about, there's new, I mean, it stayed in the family, but there is new ownership. Jim Irsay passed away. And so now you see, his daughter stepping up. And I'm curious if that means, what Richardson, because you and I have talked about, hey, they just need to give him a chance. He did not play that much in college. He does not have that many games games under his belt. And so when you take him where the Colts did to be your potential franchise quarterback, you just have to see what you have. But I can also understand the other side with them where they really like the roster is not bad, actually. Daniel Jones, if he steps in, this could actually be one of the best situations that he's been in his career. So you look at that and you say, okay, well, maybe we could win games with Daniel Jones. So I'm curious what, the Colts are now owned by Jim Irsay's three daughters. And so I'm just, curious how that looks. If they do let it play out with Anthony Richardson, or if there's a little bit of a fire going into 2025 saying, hey, we have to have results now. That's the big question.
Yeah, and look, the leash is going to be short for whoever starts, right? If either quarterback gets off to a slow start, they're probably going to make a quick change. I guess that's the other element that you have to take into account. But again, you're talking third quarterback in a super flex league and a really late backup in the final rounds for
Absolutely.
Richardson.
Yeah, he's pick 168 on ESPN. He's going 191 on Sleeper. Yahoo's at 127, Underdogs 170.
127?
Yep.
For Richardson?
Wait, no. Yeah, 127. Sorry, Yahoo. Yep.
Okay, that seems
So you're saying
odd.
This is where I draw the line.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go that high.
I don't think you do either. But that's over there on Yahoo. So if you're drafting over there, just pay attention to that. And like I said, 170 on Underdog is what we've seen. So yeah, we'll just have to, it's a wait and see situation, but he is getting the start this week. But then you told me that Daniel Jones is getting next week's start. So it's just going to be an either or situation on the depth chart until they decide to figure it out. Again, fantasylife.com to go and see our ADP tool. Everything is over there that you need to dominate your drafts. Use that code SXM20, gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription. Let's head out to the phone lines now, Adam. And I see some questions over there on Twitter, on X, if you guys want to send those in as well, at Valenzuela 17, at Adam Ronis. Let's go out to Derek in Michigan. Derek, what do you got for us?
Yeah, good morning. Great show, guys.
Thank you.
I'm in an 8-team keeper league. I'm going to have the first overall pick, where either Justin Jefferson or Bijan Robinson will be available. But my keepers aren't great, so I'm wondering if I keep Jaden Daniels or if Garrett Wilson has a bounce back this season.
Do you lose a round for keeping the player?
No, it's just a straight, you just get to pick any keeper.
Mm.
And it's 8, right?
8-team keeper. He has the first pick overall. Derek does.
8 teams. Yeah, so I'm in the hole pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I guess you go Daniels here. I mean, I really don't want to keep the quarterback, but I do think Garrett Wilson will be fine, but you might be able to get him back.
And then first overall,
Bijan.
If you're losing,
Bijan.
yeah, I was gonna say you like Bijan for the first overall. That's a good spot to be in. We've gotten good Garrett Wilson questions here, especially with keepers, because you can see, Adam, we talked about Justin Fields. He's not going to be this guy that we know through the air unless it's changed over the offseason, but I just can't see that big of a change, right? Unless, they played in college together, so maybe the connection and chemistry is there where it gets a little bit better. But, there's, like you said, there's no other huge weapons on that team other than Garrett Wilson. So, it's understandable why a lot of people have questions on Wilson going into this year.
Yeah, we've seen Wilson in his career get huge targets, like his first 3 years, 147, 168, 154. Even the receptions, 101 last year, 95 the year before. It's the touchdowns. He had 7 touchdowns last year, but he only had 7 in his first 2 seasons. And the Vegas number for touchdowns is 4.5 for Garrett Wilson. So he'll get us 1,000 yards. He'll get 90 catches. But we also have to remember, too, like DJ Moore had one of his best seasons with Justin Fields. And you got to think that even though the pass volume is going to be very low for the Jets, a lot of it's going to go to Garrett Wilson. So I'm fine drafting him. It's like in a keeper, though.
Probably want Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. And tough spot because you could probably wait on the quarterback there, but I think you'd rather just take the rushing quarterback.
Yeah. Let's go out. Let's continue on here. Let's go out to Frank in Queens. Frank, what do you got for us?
Hey, guys. Thank you for taking the call.
Yeah, of course.
I have the first. I have a choice of slot. I'm in a 12-team half PPR, third round reverse snake. So I was wondering where you think I should slot which pick I should take, being that I have the first selection. Which pick should I go in to have the best balance of team?
Ooh, I like that. That's a good question, Frank. Okay, so for gets first choice of draft slot, third round reversal, Adam. It's a 12-team half PPR. If you had your choice, where would you pick from?
I mean, most people always say one, even with third round reversal.
I wouldn't like that.
No, I do like.
Are you saying one?
I like the back end of the draft this year.
Yeah,
because
I was gonna say 8 or 6.
Yeah, I actually do like that, like 7 to 12 range, because you're getting two really good players. Because there's a drop off, maybe after like the top 15, top 16. I think there's a drop off, so you get two of those top players, and then you get the first pick around 3. So I actually don't mind picking in the second half of the draft. I feel like when I'm picking early, I'm taking players on the 2-3 turn that I really don't love, or I think there's not a huge separation between those players and the ones going late round 3, early round 4. Like that cluster of receivers to me is so close, and you're kind of forced to take the ones you think are best. And I just haven't felt great about them. So again, most people always go, take the one. I don't think you have to do that this year.
So what would you say? 6, 8, 9?
Yeah,
My
anywhere in
take
that
was 8.
range.
Yeah.
Or you can go through. You can go through who you can try and put together your roster for the first few rounds and see what you like best.
We've got appreciate you calling in, Frank. We've got the mock draft simulator, and this is what sometimes I use it for a lot. But the mock draft simulator, you're able to pick, your draft spot. Of course, you're able to put in your league scoring settings, and then you can kind of mock what could happen to you. So I would recommend that, Frank, and for anyone with questions of where they should start, because that's how I usually pick. For Scott Fish, I'm like, okay, what pick do I want here? But 6, 8 in a third round reversal is always kind of the sweet spot for me that I like, because again, you're getting maybe an Ashton Genty back there. You're getting some good value in the back of the first round, and then the third round really comes around to help you. So I really like that question. Appreciate you, Frank. Again, the mock draft simulator is live at fantasylife.com. So make sure you guys go and check that out. We're going to continue taking your phone calls here, and we are going to continue on because we've got a lot to break down. We're going through draft or pass question mark players, guys that are coming in either with an injury, maybe some competition, or something else for 2025. We're going to go through draft or pass here coming up next. Fantasy football is life. We appreciate everyone hanging out with us right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you, getting you ready for those drafts, going through, more importantly, Adam, draft or pass. Guys that we may be passing on because of their ADPs, because of maybe potential injuries, maybe potential suspensions coming in, and guys we like just based on their price and everything else. So again, we're going through draft or pass, brought to you by Premier National Sports. We've talked about them a lot, guys, but if you know someone who has a high school athlete, or maybe you have a high school athlete looking to take their game to the next level, then Premier National Sports is the team to help you there. They are trusted with recruiting an NIL resource for high school athletes and their families, which we know is so important right now. So make sure you go and help that rising high school athlete take their game to the next level. PremierNationalSports.com is where you want to head. Check them out if you haven't. Get in touch with their team at PremierNationalSports.com. Draft or pass, Adam, here we go. Let me just, since we're already talking about suspensions and we talked about Jordan Addison getting 3 games, we say, hey, we're drafting him. We're okay with the price. It was already kind of baked in. You feel the same way about Rashee Rice and his potential suspension, which we have not heard yet what that could be. We've heard ranges, but we don't want to we just don't know. It could be 4 games. It could be less. It could be somewhere up to 6 games. So we know that he's been ready. He's been through training camp and all that stuff, but are you drafting him at his current price right now, or do you not necessarily like it?
Yeah, I'm still going to draft. I just really like the player a lot, and we're getting a discount. Now, there is the risk that what if this is a suspension longer than we think? If it's my guess is it's at least 4 games. You would think it would be more than Addison, but what if it's 6? That would be the big issue. So you are rolling the dice a little bit. but I am still willing to take him. But I got to say, in recent drafts, I haven't been able to get him. Trying to time it when to take him, and it feels like there's a lot of optimism for a few people in the draft room where they get him before I can. But I liked him a lot last year, and, I know it was only 3 games, right, before he got injured, but, 31.5% target share. They're saying he's back on the field, completely healthy, good to go. There's a lot of people who are just going to pass at this point, but I'm definitely willing to draft. I know there's some risk there, but I'm confident that once he comes back that we're going to see him explode like he did last year.
Yeah, his prices are interesting because on some of the platforms, right, he'll go pick 68. But in some other platforms, you've got Xavier Worthy going ahead of him. I actually have more Xavier Worthy going into this season than I do Rashee Rice, but it's not necessarily a full fade of Rice. I kind of, when we look at it, he's recovering from it was the LCL injury last season, but he was on pace. Like you took him a lot, and I remember, we had to talk about him after that injury because it was week 4. So that was early enough where he had basically the full season to recover from that, and hopefully, if you're able to get him since taking over that starting role, we're looking at Rashee Rice has averaged 17.8 points per game. And that was week 14 of 2023. So we know what Rashee Rice can bring you. It's just, waiting on the suspension and making sure he's good to go after the LCL injury. But yeah, I don't mind the price at all necessarily. I've just been taking more Xavier Worthy, and that's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, I took Xavier Worthy yesterday in the Sirius XM Host League draft. I believe Rice went before him, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so
that's why I said just depends on the platform. Rashee Rice is still going pick 44 on Sleeper, and Xavier Worthy's going 55.
I've seen these high stakes leagues drafts too. He's still going in round 4. So a lot of it also comes down to what your starting lineup is, your competition, the bench space. All those things have to be taken into account, because it would just be a major disappointment if he gets 6 games and you already drafted him in round 4 or 5. That would really, really hurt. So, yeah, I'm guessing at least 4 games, more than Addison. Because remember, he's got to serve 30 days in jail.
Yes, not consecutively.
Right, over what?
Yeah, over the time. What is it? 5 years probation, I believe it was, something like that. So, again, we're just kind of waiting. I hope that happens sooner rather than later. We said the same thing.
Well, look, we said it about Addison, I think, yesterday, and it happened. So now the NFL,
let's do
you're
it now.
Listening. Get this done today. Give us this decision on Rice. We expect it to happen today now that we've mentioned it on this show.
Big fans of the show, obviously, is the NFL listening to this. Got to get their fantasy football drafts ready. But okay, Rashee Rice, we're good with. Draft or pass, Nick Chubb. I've gotten 4 questions over the last week of Nick Chubb because of, I will say, warranted questions because of the Joe Mixon injury news. Joe Mixon coming into the season with a foot injury that they say is just like an annoying foot injury, but he has a question on his availability for week 1. Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb is the next guy up because they went out and signed him. It was a 1-year deal with the Texans. It's worth up to $5 million, but we haven't seen the Nick Chubb of old, and there is always a possibility, Adam, that, okay, maybe we do see him, from the 3 seasons ago, but he's had really awful injuries. The one in 2023, week 2, we kind of all remember it, 2 separate reconstructive knee surgeries that he had to go through, and it just wasn't good, and then he broke his foot last season returning. So draft or pass on Nick Chubb with now the news that Joe Mixon might not be good to go for week 1.
Pass. I just don't see it happening. I'm rooting for it. Love Nick Chubb. Was taking him in a lot of drafts over the years. I think he was one of the best pure runners in the NFL when he was healthy, but I'm just not taking that risk. Even if the price is cheap, I am just passing. I'm not going to deal with it. I just don't see it happening. I mean, we got to hope that he can stay healthy. We got to hope that there's some burst there, and it's not a great offensive line. So I just think it's not worth it. And I think people will talk themselves into it. They're like, oh, well, I'm not spending a high draft pick. It's double-digit rounds. And we say that a lot, but I just don't see it happening for him. I don't see him being the starter, keeping the job, being able to be productive coming off these injuries. I think he's done.
I agree with you. And if we're wrong, we'll actually be kind of happy about it because that means we get to see the Nick Chubb of old. And
Well, I won't
I'd
if
kind
it's
of,
on my opponent's roster. I'm not
well,
going to be
okay,
happy.
if they're not, if they're on your opponent's roster, then we won't be happy. But again, we get to talk good things about Nick Chubb. I'm with you though. I have taken none of him. I can't see myself in any position where I'm going to. He had career lows in yards per attempt at 3.3. Percentage of carries that gained at least 10 yards was sitting at 4.9%. So the best might be behind him. He's turning 30 years old in December, and like we said, it's the injuries. It's going to be interesting with this team though for the Houston Texans, who again, it was a down season for CJ Stroud last year. Like, who are they going to then? I mean, obviously Nick Chubb's going to be involved, but is it a Woody Marks kind of question? Is he going to step up? I think Agumbawale is still on this team as well. Like, that's not the best start for the season that they're trying to bounce back from.
Yeah, it might be a situation. Like, I would take Woody Marks late to see what happens. More of a pass catching back. But it also is a situation where you might just say, I'm going to avoid it. Or maybe Joe Mixon returns week 1, week 2, week 3.
Yeah.
At that,
You're not taking Joe Mixon either.
No, I'm not. Like, he
I'm
is
not either.
falling. And even every time I see him fall, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. Not knowing the details of the injury at this point and the fact that it's been lingering and keeps coming back is a problem. I just see the Texans passing more. So it's more beneficial, I think, to the receivers at this point.
Last one for draft or pass. This isn't necessarily it's injury from last season, but I did want to talk about Christian Kirk. Saw a question on him as well. So Christian Kirk is going over, and we can talk and stay on the same team here. But what are your expectations for him now that he is with CJ Stroud? We know that it's Nico Collins' world, and we're kind of just living in it. I believe he got knocked out of the season last year, right? He had some type of collarbone injury. But again, we've seen him out on the field. Christian Kirk on a new team. Are you drafting or passing?
I'm drafting based on the price. I don't have a lot. I mean, everyone's excited for Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, but they brought Kirk in to be the slot guy, so he could play a solid role in this passing game, especially early in the season. If the offensive line is having some issues and they want to get the ball out quickly, it could be a lot of receptions for Christian Kirk. So again, not someone I'm targeting, not someone I'm excited to take, but if I'm drafting, I need a receiver, and he's the highest ranked guy on my board, I'm open to taking him.
He's someone, when we talk about roster construction, right? Christian Kirk, I don't necessarily love taking him either. I'd rather have, like you said, Jaden Higgins. I do like Jalen Noel as well. That's someone we can talk about later. But I'm targeting Kirk sometimes when you need a veteran guy that we know can probably step into a good role at the beginning before those rookies really come on. And I think that's something that I've been looking at this season because, we always get really excited about rookies, right? It's just something that happens every single year for any drafter. It doesn't matter who you are. And there's a good reason for that. You get generational talent, that term thrown around, and you get, all the excitement of the potential. But when you're looking at your roster and you're looking around and saying, wow, I've got a lot of rookies on this team, that can be good, but sometimes that could take a while to pay off. So someone like Christian Kirk, when you look around and say, I need a veteran guy that's been here before, that has been in training camp, that can step in for the first, 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it may be, for some until those other guys really start to come on. Because we've seen for rookies, Adam, sometimes depending on the situation that they're in, it does take them a little bit to just get acclimated, to get up to game speed, and to just figure everything out. So someone like Christian Kirk is not necessarily a bad pick, especially when you just need a veteran guy who can be a placeholder until maybe one of those other rookies hits.
Yeah, a lot of rookies. It takes time, and we're going to see it this year. We saw last year, even Bucky Irving. Look how long it took him to really take over the role, and he was a difference maker down the stretch. But you do need to exhibit patience with some of these rookies that you're taking late, and sometimes you can't. The example I keep giving was Jalen McMillan last year. He was a guy brutal. I liked. I took him in the last couple rounds, and it just didn't happen. Even when Evans and Godwin first went out, he really didn't produce, and it took until late in the year. And I did wind up cutting him on a lot of teams because you can't wait that long. But a lot of these rookies, you're going to have to wait a few weeks. So they're kind of guys you put on the bench. You hope that you hold them long enough that when they do get the opportunity and blow up, they're still on your team. But there are going to be times where it's going to take a little too long.
Yeah, it's sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. Injuries, like you said, they're always going to be a part of this for fantasy football, and sometimes you just have to look around, and someone's going to be, a waiver wire casualty because of guys that you just need to step up, whether it's quarterbacks, whatever position. But we're always going to be faced with those kind of questions in the season, especially. So that was draft or pass, going through guys that we are maybe drafting or passing on based on their ADP, and that was presented by Premier National Sports. So make sure, as always, Premier National Sports, their team is there to help you. If you've got a rising high school athlete looking to take their game to the next level, they can help you through that entire process. It is so important to go through, people that know and are trusted at recruiting and NIL resources. So make sure you check out their team. Go and talk to them at premiernationalsports.com. That's premiernationalsports.com. We're going to continue on here, Adam, going through. We talked about backup running backs yesterday, got some questions from that. We're going to continue answering questions on the phone lines and through X over there. So make sure you send those in at Valenzuela17, at Adam Ronis. We're going through backup running back potential rankings, guys that we like, coming up next. We've got you covered right here. So does fantasylife.com. Make sure you're using that promo code SXM20. Gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 fantasy life subscription over there. We're talking through running backs here, Adam, things that we've seen. We talked yesterday a little bit, it's hard to rank, some of these running backs where we say, okay, he's a handcuff, or some of these guys where we say, okay, well, he's kind of a handcuff, but he could have standalone value here. So I wanted to continue going through that to kind of differentiate some of the guys that we mentioned yesterday, and some new guys that we can look at today. More specifically, some of the lower tier guys are the ones that I wanted to talk about. Later round guys, so we're not talking about, Jaylen Warren or Zach Charbonnet, Cam Scatterboo. Those guys are in a tier all of their own, but I want to start with Rachaad White, because I have seen some conversations around. We've mentioned Bucky Irving a couple of times during this show because we've gotten quotes out of camp saying, Bucky Irving is obviously going to be the guy for this team. And there was a report from Dan Graziano yesterday saying that Bucky Irving, quote, is viewed by people in the building as special enough to warrant high volume RB1 role. So when we hear that, we haven't been necessarily enamored with Rachaad White, but he has been someone where we say if Bucky were to go down, he steps up into a big role. But is he someone that has been on your radar, or do you like other handcuffs more than him?
Yeah, I like others more. I think obviously if you have Bucky Irving, he's someone more to look at because we've seen White perform well in fantasy. We know he's not the best in between the tackles. His yards per carry has always been subpar, but in the passing game, that's really where he excels. So he would. And it feels like he would need an injury at this point. As long as Bucky Irving can hold up. I guess that's the biggest concern. Can he handle that bigger workload over the course of an entire season?
Which I think he can. Don't you? Bucky?
Probably, yeah. I mean, he's not the biggest back. That's the only concern.
He's not. And you're paying for an RB1 kind of volume for him as well this season because he's going like off the board, maybe, I think, RB9, and it just kind of depends on where
mid to end of round 2 is where you see him go.
Yeah, consensus ADP has him round 9, or not round 9. We wish it was round 9. RB9 off the board, but I agree. I mean, I've taken Bucky Irving actually a good amount this offseason just because, we're expecting that role to continue. We've heard them say, it's a high volume RB1 role, and that's kind of what we waited for last season. And once we got there, it was good to see. So I agree on Rachaad White. We know that he can catch passes, but not necessarily one that I'm targeting going after every single time because I just think there's better guys. Let's go over to Carolina. Rico Dowdle. We've talked about Chuba Hubbard. We know Jonathan Brooks isn't going to be back this season. Is this a role that we haven't been talking about enough? Like, do you think Chuba Hubbard could actually, they paid him, like he can keep, that kind of workload that we saw last season, but Rico Dowdle is going to be the backup to Chuba Hubbard. Do you think he could end up having some standalone value, or do you think Chuba Hubbard does keep with the, workhorse role that we saw last season?
Yeah, I don't see it with Rico Dowdle. I mean, again, Hubbard really changed the opinions of Carolina. I don't think they envisioned him being this type of player. They saw it and they said, okay, we are going to pay you now. And a lot of people are banking on the Carolina offense improving and taking that jump up. So, yeah, I'm not really looking at Rico Dowdle as one of the handcuff targets among the top. He's going way later.
I love drafting Chuba Hubbard again this season. I got some pushback yesterday on LGTV saying that like Rico Dowdle could have, this value that we're not seeing yet, and I just don't believe it. I know they drafted Trevor Etienne as well, so that's a round 4 pick, but I think it's what your biggest concern for Chuba Hubbard would be, his pass catching work, right? The passing game. Would that be it for him?
Yeah, you would like to see that get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, but I think mid-range RB2, I think when you look at him and that's where he's going in drafts. So I still like to take him. Same with Tetairoa and McMillan for the Carolina Panthers. Those are two guys that I've definitely liked. And you took Bryce Young yesterday. So maybe we should say go Panthers right now. It's a go Panthers
Apparently
day.
so, yeah. I guess
That's nerve-wracking.
that's the
What
way
could
to
be
go.
more nerve-wracking than seeing how much Carolina Panthers you have going into the season? Not much. They'll be better. They can't be worse.
Look, if I just need Bryce Young to play like he did in the second half or to close
Yeah.
the season, I need him to run a little bit, get a couple rushing touchdowns. Again, the addition of Tetairoa McMillan is huge. They needed that big target, that X receiver, so that should really help Bryce Young.
Let's go through some more running backs that we're looking at, handcuffs that we're maybe targeting, guys that we're saying you could pass on. We have to talk about the Bears because DeAndre Swift ran pure this offseason, but who is the next man up? Same, we have to talk about Buffalo and James Cook. We're going to go through that next. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Adam? Look, it's already almost time for us to
Yeah,
go.
it's time for you to tell people to leave work early. Oh, wait,
No.
today's not Friday.
And I didn't even know what day it was. It's Wednesday,
That's
by
true,
the way.
yeah.
I always keep my little calendar
Because you were
app
off
open.
Monday, so you're thrown off. Is that
Yeah,
why?
I'm a little thrown off. Yeah. I had a, friend's wedding. And yeah, it has thrown me off. Thought it was Tuesday, but it's not.
Well, it's Wednesday, so
We're
there you
halfway
go.
through
A
the
day
week.
closer to the weekend.
There we go. Going to the beach this weekend? What are we doing?
Right
Movie?
now it's not in the plans. Not sure
Ah.
yet. Definitely want to do something on Saturday, so we'll see.
All right. I like it. Make sure you stay locked in right here, though, on Fantasy Life, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You've got RotoWire Fantasy Sports today with Jeff Erickson and Nick Whalen here coming up next. Just to finish out our conversation on some of these backup running backs or running backs that we might be targeting for a handcuff role. If a guy goes down, they're going to step up. Is Roschon Johnson, have we not been talking about him enough? Because the overall idea, right, is DeAndre Swift didn't get much competition added to this backfield, and we can talk about some of the other guys. But Roschon Johnson, I mean, if it's really going to be this thunder and lightning approach that Ben Johnson has said, if it's going to be like Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, obviously different skill sets here and different talent levels with Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift. But, I mean, should we be talking more about Roschon Johnson and drafting him a little bit more?
Probably because I've seen reports that he's been the Bears' short yardage goal line back and also
That's
in on
huge.
third down. So, yeah, that is really a big there. I know DeAndre Swift is the back going earliest, and you want a piece of this offense if you believe in Ben Johnson turning this around. So getting that running back in this offense is valuable. So, yeah, I've been seeing reports the last several days that, he's looked good and, could be the goal line back. So, yeah, I think you do have to be open to him. And Kyle Monangai, too, is another name that you're seeing. I did take him in the last round 16 of a draft over the weekend. And, again, that draft, no kickers, no defense. So round 16 is different compared to the leagues with kickers and a defense, right? You're taking 2 rounds away. So ability to go deeper there. So, yeah. I think, we have to look at all these backs. And Roschon Johnson's going like outside the top 50. So
he's not someone like he hasn't done much over his first 2 seasons, but Johnson is this guy where if they do say, hey, it's a committee approach or thunder and lightning with Ben Johnson. I mean, he did have 6 rushing touchdowns inside the 5-yard line last season. So the goal line role is important here. And I know we've talked a lot about DeAndre Swift, but it feels like one where I'm looking around around Adam and I was like, oof, I don't have, it's not purely, if it's not purely going to be DeAndre Swift, then I need more of whoever is going to be next in line. And like you said, Roschon Johnson, I love drafting Kyle Monangai late too. He's one of my favorite. We talk about the late guys, the guys that, again, you're going to have to exercise a lot of patience. They'll probably be your first cut, one of your first cuts if you need waiver wire help. But Kyle Monangai, Taj Brooks is another one with, Chase Brown up there. They got, they released Zach Moss. And so he's kind of got more of a lane to kind of go up. And it used to be Marshawn Lloyd. I've actually stopped drafting Marshawn Lloyd. I can't, the injuries, he's dealing with an injury right now. So I just have to wait and see what the timeline is. But Marshawn Lloyd was one of them.
Yeah, he was for me too. And, have to drop him a little bit since, again, missing valuable reps here in training camp. And it's 2 years in a row. I do think they want him to be that backup and they have plans for him, but he's got to find a way to stay on the field.
Is Tyler Algier the best guy out of that group, though? That would take an injury. Really, if we're talking about backup running backs or handcuffs, Tyler Algier in Atlanta for Bijan Robinson's role is huge.
Yeah, if you have Robinson, it's more appealing.
Yeah, just in case.
Yes.
A.J. Dillon?
No.
We haven't talked about it. Okay.
I'd
next.
rather have Will Shipley.
Will Shipley's good, though.
I'd rather have him than Dillon.
I just wanted to bring it. We didn't talk about A.J. Dillon all last season. So I wanted to bring him up.
For good reason.
Stop. Being a friend of the show. He's probably listening right now. I just wanted to bring him up. All right. Everything is live at fantasylife.com. Make sure you go check out those rankings, all the tools, projections, ADP. We've got trade analyzers, everything you need, like I've always said, to do well in your drafts. Make sure you use that code SXM20. Gets you 20% off any tier 1 or tier 2 subscription. We'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, same time.